were created here in California, not as a result of a conspiracy, but because...
You don't need a formal conspiracy.
Right.
When interests converge, these people went to the same universities and fraternities, they're on the same boards of directors, they're in the same country clubs, they have like interests, they don't need to call a meeting, they know what's good for them.
Hi, before I forget, we're going to be going over a lot of information, so I went ahead and created a web app here in the background that you can use to follow along with this video. So just go to seeingstonenetlify.app. I'm putting it here at the bottom, and then from there you'll be able to follow along with this video. It's highly interactive, it's pretty neat. And yeah, I hope you enjoy the video. 22% of American adults are now betting on elections. October of 2024, every major outlet were reporting on polymarket odds. Trump was at 65% to win, and those numbers shaped coverage across the likes of CNN, Fox, and the New York Times. But here's what those outlets didn't report. Two blockchain forensic firms, Chaos Labs and Inca Digital, pulled the transaction data behind those odds. Polymarket runs on public blockchain. Every bet is traceable and every wallet is visible. Their analysts of hundreds of thousands of transactions revealed this. 33% of Polymarket's presidential marketing volume was wash trading. This means that the same wallets were betting both sides, the same funding sources. That's not prediction, that's manipulation infrastructure. And when you trace who funded Polymarket, who amplifies those odds to 600 million users, who reports them as news, who validates them from government positions, the same handful of people just keep appearing. Like, this isn't conspiracy theory, this is pattern recognition, this is shared interest. Like, in my opinion, from what I found, they're not just influencing culture, they're replacing its entire infrastructure. First, we have prediction markets that manufacture consensus. We have platforms that are controlling distribution to 600 million users. Media empires built within 18 months. Podcast networks that are bypassing all regulations. Government positions without oversight, and behavioral data being sold to the highest bidder, and all of it while surveillance infrastructure is watching every move both in person and online. Here's how fast the infrastructure capture happens when it's completely coordinated. In Hungary, 500 media outlets were transferred overnight on November 28th of 2018. Russia, television networks controlled in 12 months from 2000 to 2001. And right now, the current rate of America infrastructure capture, 18 months in and accelerating. Like, the biggest difference is the Americans learned from all those failures. There are no sudden seizures that are triggering resistance. It's all just legal acquisition, strategic installation, and just complete infrastructure capture. I mean, at this rate, by the time you notice, the ownership has already changed. The goal of this video is to help you recognize the three patterns that I saw. First, infrastructure over content. Don't watch what they're saying, watch where they are saying it. Second, networks over individuals. 1 billionaire is capitalism. 7 billionaires working together are mutual interests. And to quote Lester Freeman,
you follow drugs, you get drug addicts and drug dealers. But you start to follow the money, and you don't know where the fuck it's gonna take you.
Follow the money, map the funding networks, track where the boards overlap, because you never know what you're gonna find. And finally, just timing over coincidence. When separate entities are messaging the same thing within 48 hours, that is literally coordinated coordination. These aren't my special tools. I didn't spend my time digging through SEC filings or anything on the level of a CoffeeZilla deep dive. But you know what? I will say this is Cafe Americano Zilla, and if you got that joke, bars. I just followed the money, saw who hung out with who, and connected the dots from there. This is all widely public information. But let me show you how each node works. Then I'll demonstrate what happens when all 7 of them are firing simultaneously. And like, completely fair warning, this kind of flies off the rails towards the end, but I think at the end of the day, that is the point. Not my point, their point. So I need to show you something that happened in summer of 2025. So in July 29th, the Golden State Valkyries versus the Atlanta Dream, WNBA game. Someone decided to throw a green adult toy onto the court mid-game. The person was arrested. Multiple news outlets, arrest records.
Video from the WNBA is making headlines, but not for anything that happened on the scoreboard.
Over the past few weeks, multiple teams in the WNBA have been hit with thrown dildos being thrown onto the court by people in the crowd.
Oh, look out. Something just came onto the floor.
August 5th, Phoenix Mercury game. Another incident. This time, the object hit a man and a 9-year-old child. Second arrest. August 6th, Polymarket, the platform we'll get to here in a second, launched betting markets. They called them Dildo Dailies, and I don't know if I'm gonna have to censor that or not. $500,000 in bets, people betting on what color would be thrown next, which game would be disrupted, and whether it would happen again.
But in any event, there are bets going on as to when this will happen, what color the dildo will be, and of course all of this is very much against the rules. People have been caught that have done this, they've been arrested, others are being banned from arenas or from WNBA events.
Both arrested individuals said that they wanted to, quote unquote, go viral.
And so for some, including some of the people doing the throwing, they're saying that it's not misogyny, they're just trying to generate attention, which I'm not sure if that's better or worse.
Now, you might think that that's just internet chaos, one-off weirdness, you know, just degenerates doing degenerate things. But here is what you can bet on through platforms like Polymarket. You can bet on what color Gatorade gets dumped on the coach. You can bet on Swedish ping pong at 3 a.m. You can bet on whether or not Taylor Swift will attend a football game. And yes, you can bet whether or not someone will throw an adult toy at a WNBA game.
The thing is, with modern betting apps, you can gamble all the time on just about anything, and people do. As this local news story from Oregon shows.
One of the biggest bets, February of last year. In the wee hours of the morning, a sports bettor in Oregon put down $35,000 on this match in Poland between 2 relatively unknown players in an empty gym.
This is like the crack cocaine of sports gambling.
But that's not even the weird part. The weird part is someone did end up throwing one after this started. Bets were paid out. One user made $6,000 worth of profit. And what that means is that you just watch reality manipulation in real time. Somebody creates a bet. Financial incentives appear somewhere, someone performs that action, and the infrastructure validates the outcome. Like, that already sounds ghoulish enough. Now imagine that same infrastructure and mentality being applied to something like elections. Like, here is how fast this happened. 2023, Polymarket does $73 million in total annual volume. At the beginning of 2024, in January, they were making about $54 million monthly. July, they made $360 million, and by November, they were bringing in $2.63 billion. That is 48 times growth in just 10 months. The total 2024 volume for Polymarket was $9 billion. That is 123 times larger than its previous year. You have more betting volume on the presidential election than the Super Bowl. And here's how you know that this just isn't online crypto weirdness anymore. Earlier this month, DraftKings and FanDuel, the two companies that made sports betting a household activity, they both announced that they're launching prediction market platforms. They're not adding them, they're pivoting to them. They quit the American Gaming Association over this. Nevada revoked their licenses. These are billion-dollar companies that are abandoning traditional sports betting to chase what Polymarket built. October of 2025, the parent company of the New York Stock Exchange invests $2 billion in Polymarket, the parent company of the New York Stock Exchange. Now Polymarket has a $9 billion valuation. Wall Street didn't just notice prediction markets. Wall Street is buying in. From $73 million to institutional legitimization in just like 18 months. This platform, the one that's creating financial incentives to throw dildos at basketball games, here's what you need to know about where it came from. 2020, a 21-year-old college dropout named Shane Copland is locked down in his Manhattan apartment during COVID. He's appraising his belongings to pay rent. He's really struggling financially, but he ends up building Polymarket in 3 months. His pitch? Combat COVID misinformation using market incentives. Let people bet on reality. The wisdom of crowds would surface truth. It's very idealistic, very 2020.
If people knew for sure, it would be 100%. But ultimately, it's going to get you something that's better than whatever you're seeing on the internet, where it's just a complete free-for-all of open outcry.
January of 2022, the CFTC comes down hard. $1.4 million fine, cease and desist. Polymarket has been operating as an unregistered trading facility, banned from the US markets immediately. Most startups would die just right there. Polymarket didn't. In October of 2020, they gained $4 million in a venture capitalist seed round led by a group called Polychain Capital. December of 2021, $25 million Series A funding, led by a group called General Catalyst, which includes Airbnb co-founder Joe Gebbia. May 2024, $45 million in Series B funding. And this is where the investor list starts to get really interesting. First, you have Vitalik Buterin, the person who founded the Ethereum cryptocurrency, and leading the round, a group called the Founders Fund. June 2025, another $200 million, same lead investor again, the Founders Fund again. And now Polymarket at this point is at a $1 billion valuation. And if your ears just perked up at that name, the Founders Fund, good. Let's see how much of this you already know. And if Founders Fund means nothing to you, it will by the end of this video, I promise. Because here's what happens when you trace who exactly controls that fund, who they're connected to, and what other things they've been quietly buying up over the last 18 months. You really start seeing a pattern, and that pattern, it's not about gambling on basketball games or elections. It's about building an infrastructure that can shape what people believe is real, actually manufacturing reality. And yes, take a shot every time I say infrastructure, it's gonna happen. So here is my thesis for this video. Websites like Polymarket, Closhi, and other prediction markets, this is what they claim to do. They aggregate wisdom, they crowdsource truth, they let markets discover reality, so to speak. But when you can bet on everything from Gatorade colors to election outcomes to adult toys and basketball games, you don't get better predictions. You get infrastructure for manufacturing reality, because markets don't just reflect behavior, they incentivize it. And when reality itself becomes profitable to manipulate, somebody will manipulate it. And it's not going to be you. The WNBA incidents proved it all at a small scale. Polymarket showed that this system can work. $2 billion investment from Wall Street shows that the institutions at B want more of this. Now watch what happens when that same infrastructure gets connected to the distribution layer, the platform that shapes what 600 million people see every day. So in February of 2023, Twitter users noticed something a little bit strange. Their feeds were very musky, flooded with musk. Elon Musk, to be specific, and more than usual. Every scroll, every refresh, Musk. An outlet called Platformer investigated this weird anomaly, and what they found, Musk forced engineers to boost his tweets 1,000 times the normal weight or distribution or what have you. Not 10 times, not 100, 1,000. Let me emphasize 1,000. And this is also Super Bowl 57, February 12th, 2023. Both Elon Musk and then President Joe Biden make a tweet about the game. Biden's tweet, 29 million views. Musk tweet, 9.1 million views. Musk deleted his tweet, called an emergency meeting at 2:36 a.m. and pulled 80 engineers for an all-nighter. By morning, the algorithm had changed. From that day forward, Elon's tweets were automatically green-lighted. They were bypassed all filters and amplified 1,000 times above every other user in the platform. The result was his Super Bowl tweet for the following year reached 83 million views, while Biden's reached 23 million. 600 million users, and one person controlling what they all see. So let's do a little bit of a recap of how we got here. So October of 2022, Elon completes his $44 billion Twitter acquisition, and by July of 2023, rebranded it to X. And you know what, really quick? Because Elon dead names his daughter, I did name X, I just call it Twitter. So the staff was slashed from 7,500 to under 2,000. Free speech absolutism was declared. State-controlled media labels were removed. Russian RT, Chinese state media, Iranian accounts were suddenly promoted. Follower counts spiked 70% in 3 months. The headlines focused on content moderation, but watch for the real power. PM of that same day, Elon tweets, "I fully endorse President Trump and hope for his rapid recovery." That same day, Queensland University researchers detect what they call a structural break. In short, they detected that something was blatantly changed in the algorithm. Elon's engagement metrics start exploding beyond what the platform-wide changes can explain. For example, his posts before and after the performance paint a very stark picture. His views were up 138% per post versus the average 57% for other users. He was being retweeted 237% more than the 152% average for other users. So even with the increase of activity, which people believe to be bots, we'll get to that, Elon's were still going above and beyond everyone else's. You know what? Elon was right. He dealt with the bot problem. He came to Twitter to deal with the bot problem, and he dealt with it. Republican-leaning accounts show systematic amplification advantages over Democratic accounts in the For You feed. And remember, 600 million users, one person's political endorsement, and an algorithm restructured within hours of said endorsement. This is what infrastructure manipulation can look like at a population scale. Now, back to that issue about Elon solving the bots. So, algorithm manipulation controls distribution, but who creates the content that is being distributed? In October of 2024, Clemson University security researchers pulled account creation data. What they find: coordinated networks, thousands of accounts created in batches within 48-hour windows, identical profile patterns, synchronized posting schedules. IP addresses were traced back to places like St. Petersburg, Russia, where the Internet Research Agency lives. We have Tel Aviv server farms, Nigerian click farms. These are all posting as concerned conservatives from Ohio. By the time that users see it trending, it looks like organic American outrage. When you see a hashtag trending on X, you're watching which bot networks activated that day, let's be honest. And Elon's free speech absolutism removed the labels that would flag things like state-controlled media. And let me remind you, this is now the system working as designed. And then in November of 2024, Musk launches Grok, X's AI chatbot. Sounds like a burp. Grok. Or a Pokemon. And Grok didn't just validate whatever you were feeling that day. It wasn't just answers. There was also recently introduced Grokopedia, Elon's AI-generated encyclopedia. There's no human editorial oversight on these entries too. Grok is back in wiki form. So Grokopedia launches with over 1 million articles. In November of 2025, Cornell University researchers decided to analyze Grokopedia's sources. These are their sources, mind you, YouTube. So when I say these out loud, this is me citing Grokopedia sources, not me promoting any other certain types of websites. I don't even, we'll see if I can even say these. So Grokopedia sources include Stormfront, the neo-Nazi forum founded started by a former KKK leader, 42 citations. VDare, a white nationalist website, 107 citations. InfoWars, 34 citations. A total of very low credibility sources, 12,522 citations. That is from the Cornell Security Trust and Safety Initiative. 5.5% of all Grokipedia sources are blacklisted by Wikipedia itself at this time. Grok 3 cites news articles incorrectly 94% of the time. And if that wasn't enough, famous Holocaust denier David Irving described in positive terms Grokipedia as resistance to institutional suppression. Pizzagate is presented as valid. The Great Replacement theory is presented as something that is currently factually occurring. And then on top of that, Grok is trained on ex post that are algorithmically curated by Musk, citing extremist sources and being presented as neutral, centrist knowledge. Like, this is citation laundering at scale. And then the monetization just completes the loop. You have Twitter Blue subscribers, those who pay Elon Musk, and they earn revenue based on engagement. There is the financial incentive once again. Maximum rage, maximum replies, and then the result is your timeline is flooded with just the dumbest shit you've ever seen. You're being farmed for engagement metrics that pay people to make you angry. And at the same time, bot manufactured consensus is getting presented as what the people are saying. And AI generated knowledge is citing neo-Nazi forums as credible sources. And also earlier this year, Elon decided to connect it back to the first node. So June 6th of 2025, X announces that Polymarket is its official prediction market partner. The way it's being integrated is like this. Live Grok annotations on Polymarket predictions. The betting interface can be directly accessible within X. You have real-time data sharing to 600 million users. You have prediction market odds appearing in the users' feeds. Back in October 6th of 2024, Elon tweeted, "Trump now leading Kamala by 3% in betting markets, more accurate than polls, as actual money is on the line." That had 83 million impressions and it was shared 47,000 times. So going back to what we've already documented so far, so we have Polymarket, which creates prediction market odds with its 33% wash trading. Then we have X, which amplifies those odds to 600 million users. And in this infrastructure of X, we have an algorithm that is boosting Elon Musk. It has a structural break that is favoring Republican and Trumpian accounts. So we started with Polymarket, which creates prediction market odds with its 33% wash trading. And then from there, those odds are amplified to 600 million users on X. And X, as an infrastructure, has an algorithm that is boosting Elon Musk and a structural break that favors Republican accounts post his Trump endorsement. And finally, it has bot networks that are manufacturing consensus. Oh, I'm sorry, I also forgot Grok citing Polymarket as an authoritative source, along with Stormfront, VDare, and InfoWars. And with this official partnership integrating prediction markets into feeds, this is all by design. I'm not even halfway done yet, but it's just 7 different aspects of our reality being integrated into one coordinated system controlled by a handful of people. So after Elon Musk took over Twitter, millions tried to leave. They went to places like Mastodon, which gained 2.5 million users in its launch. And then in February, you have Blue Sky launching with this waitlist hype. And then Meta Threads launched with 100 million signups in 1 week. But none of them really had the staying power to be the biggest Twitter competitor. Blue Sky maybe, but even then, like, Blue Sky is just its own place. Follow me on Blue Sky. And I think unfortunately this is just because the conversation happens where the people are, and the people are where the conversation happens. Network effects aren't really a bug, that's the whole point. That's the whole point of a monopoly, damn it. When you control distribution to 600 million users who are kind of locked in and don't really have that many alternative places to go, you can make 33% wash trading look like market wisdom, and you can make fringe candidates look mainstream. And the one thing that I didn't even get to that I think is like the most terrifying about all this, Elon Musk calls humans a biological bootloader for digital superintelligence. Just keep that phrase in mind for later, because this is more than just Twitter and betting markets and crypto and making money. Oh, and you know what just broke in the news while I started working on this video? Polymarket is now going to be the official prediction market of CNN. So I guess now we have to talk about what happens when these same weirdos now control the media. So here is what is completely crazy about this whole thing. 18 months. That's how long it took David Ellison to go from zero broadcast infrastructure to controlling CBS News. Now, for some historical context, Time Warner and AOL took 18 months just for regulatory approval back in 2000. Comcast buying NBC Universal, 13 months of regulatory review back in 2011. But David Ellison buying Paramount, 18 months total. Deal announced to deal closed. They found the loopholes that authoritarian regimes missed. Don't seize, purchase. Don't nationalize, privatize to the right buyers. Legal acquisition moves faster than government oversight can track. So for comparison, let me show you how authoritarian governments capture media infrastructure. Hungary in 2018, Viktor Orban's government allies donate 476 media outlets to Kesma Foundation. No payment, just transferred. Orban himself signs a government decree declaring it strategic national importance. This exempts the merger from competition law review. So overnight, 40% of Hungary's news market becomes government propaganda. Poland in 2015, the PIS government installs a small media law weeks after its election victory. Because of this, the Treasury minister is given direct appointment power over public broadcasting. Management boards are terminated and government appointees are installed. In Russia, from 2000 to 2001, 4 days after Vladimir Putin's inauguration, there are armed raids on media-most offices. June of 2000, the owner Vladimir Kuczynski is arrested. April of 2001, state-controlled Gazprom seizes NTV with armed guards. Within 12 months, all 3 major TV networks were under Kremlin control. The pattern all used government, state, and authoritative force. And because of that, there was international outcry, there were sanctions, there were condemnations. And these triggered alarm bells because the governments acted openly. But here in the USA, October from 2024 to about August of 2025, different models, same result. Remember back in October that Trump sued CBS over the 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris just days before the election. And then early 2025, Paramount settles after Trump wins the election and gives a $16 million payment to Trump. July of 2025, Skydance files letters with the FCC to get merger approval. And in doing so, they promise to eliminate all DEI programs at Paramount. They promised to install an ombudsman to police CBS for ideological bias. And this ombudsman was guaranteed for a minimum of 2 years. And the very next day, FCC Chair Brendan Carr approves the deal. His statement, Americans no longer trust the legacy national news media. It's time for a change. That's why I welcome Skydance's commitment to make significant changes at the once storied CBS broadcast network. This is how the new formula broke down. They turned private capital into government pressure in a single swift move. And because of that, they used their regulatory leverage to force ideological compliance on people in order to get things like FCC approval. Trump posted on Truth Social claiming over 36 million in commitments from Paramount's owners. David Ellison's father, Oracle CEO Larry Ellison, is a Trump ally funding most of the deal. And I think this is where the innovation lies. You have American billionaires purchasing media with private capital, and the government provides regulatory acceleration in exchange for certain concessions. Oh, what was that, Luna? Oh, that's an oligarchy? Oh, well, I mean, it looks a lot like capitalism and it functions a lot like authoritarianism. So once again, 18 months. Nobody to network owner. CBS News now also has a government-mandated ombudsman to police bias. And there's no coup to resist, no government to petition, just legal acquisition with regulatory approval. It's working exactly as it was designed. Now, really quick, before we go into the second half, you might be kind of viewing all of this through a partisan lens, you know, left, right, Republican, whatever. That's understandable, but also you have to be reminded that this is exactly what they're counting on. I'm trying to get this out before Class Consciousness Christmas, because this isn't about Donald Trump. Not just about Donald Trump, at least. Look at this timeline again. We have Polymarket, which is funded by Peter Thiel's Founders Fund. X, which is owned by Elon Musk and an algorithm restructured for his own weirdness. Paramount is acquired by David Ellison, son of Larry Ellison, and Larry Ellison is funding the CBS deal. We have FCC approval conditional on certain ideological concessions. And we also have David Sachs as White House AI and crypto czar. And finally, we have Marc Andreessen that is funding Barry Weiss, who is now the CBS president. Trump may be the current office holder, but these 7 people are arguably creating the infrastructure that will very easily outlast him. They didn't really make a bet on Trump. They're the ones that made the infrastructure for his victory possible. They made him. This isn't partisan politics. This is documented history repeating itself with a very 21st century business model. This is America. We don't use government decrees or legislative force in order to take things over. We use private capital and legal acquisition. And so this question isn't whether or not you like Donald Trump. The question is, do you want 7 billionaires controlling our reality, to be quite honest, or controlling what other people perceive as reality? Because that is what is being built. Because while we are currently fighting the current president and current administration, they're building the permanent infrastructure afterwards. Trump will be gone sometime tomorrow. Everything else will remain. And so to continue, because we talked about David Ellison earlier, let's go and talk about what he controls. Now, I know that we just mentioned the name David Sachs, but before I get into David Sachs, you need to understand the legal framework that he's operating in. Traditional broadcast media, I'm talking television and radio, that requires things like FCC licensing, disclosure of conflicts of interest, and just government oversight of content. But podcasting just requires an internet connection. That's it. The FCC doesn't regulate podcasts at all. Now, the FTC technically has jurisdiction. They require disclosure if you're paid to promote a product, up to $53,088 per violation, which is why I have to disclose that you are the sponsor of this video. You, the viewer. That's right. You are the sponsor of this video. You are the one who made 2025 just an amazing year for this channel. So thank you so much. And if you haven't subscribed yet, maybe consider it. Next year, I'm probably going to start off with a lot less heavy stuff. Just warning you, but I mean, like, we kind of need it. So check out my other videos. If you like what you see, give me a subscribe, and yeah, let's go ahead and get into the second half and start bringing this home. But here's what the FTC doesn't require you to disclose. That you're a venture capitalist investing in companies, that you're a government official setting those policies for those companies, and that you're discussing those same companies on your podcast as objective analysis. As long as the company didn't directly pay for the podcast ad spot, no disclosure is required. They found the gap between 3 regulatory frameworks, and one person is exploiting all 3 simultaneously. So David Sachs is part of the PayPal Mafia. He is another of the PayPal Mafia alumnus. He's Peter Thiel's Stanford roommate, then colleague for 25 plus years. So let me show you every infrastructure that he touches. So first, he is a venture capitalist under Kraft Ventures. He invested in Polymarket, OpenAI, multiple crypto platforms. His portfolio value is undisclosed billions. Second, he is the host of the All In podcast, or one of the hosts. They bring in about 500,000 weekly listeners. And finally, he is the White House AI and crypto czar. He was appointed December 5th of 2024, and he helped set policy for AI and cryptocurrency in America. He has a special government employee status, so there's no divestment that is required, but he writes the regulations for the industries that he is investing in. So this is how I visualize his week. Monday, he evaluates crypto investments at Craft Ventures. Wednesday, he discusses policy on the All In podcast to his 500,000 weekly listeners. And then Friday, he sets crypto policy as the White House czar. It's the same person, same companies, same week. But it's not just what Sachs controls directly. It's who he's connected to across all these other nodes. As I stated, he is good close friends with Peter Thiel. They were roommates in Stanford. Elon and David Sachs, once again, both connected via PayPal. Musk brought David Sachs into Tesla and SpaceX conversations, and they both advocate for free speech absolutism. He's connected to another figure which we'll talk about, Marc Andreessen. Andreessen's venture capitalist fund A16Z funded companies that David Sachs advises. Both have published manifestos about accelerating technology, which we will get into, and both advocate that AI regulation is akin to murder. And here is the most interesting one, in my opinion. So in June 6th of 2024, David Sachs hosts a $12 million Trump fundraiser. Sachs advocates for Vance as a VP pick at that fundraiser. Trump announces Vance in July 15th of 2024, and then later that year, David Sachs himself is appointed to the White House czar in December. And also, just keep this in mind, Vance has been funded by Peter Thiel. Thiel gave him $15 million for his Senate campaign. This isn't just one person with a conflict of interest. This is one person that serves as an integration point for 7 different infrastructure nodes that control our modern reality. And David Sachs isn't really alone in this. This is the model now. You have people like Joe Rogan with 14.5 million listeners an episode, and they are able to promote products with minimal FTC enforcement. Tucker Carlson right now, after leaving Fox, he's arguably bigger than ever. He's no longer subject to FCC regulations, and he could say things on his podcast now that would violate broadcast standards. Like, just to really quick highlight how big the podcast economy is right now for 2025, there are around 464 million podcast listeners globally. $4 billion in advertising market. There's zero FCC regulation, and there's very minimal FTC enforcement. And as a reminder, traditional broadcasting requires things like licensing, and I mean, there are heavy fines up to $325,000 per violation. None of that for podcasting though. They found the infrastructure where this system doesn't apply, and they're using it to validate everything else that these other infrastructures produce. So at this point, we have Polymarket manufacturing consensus through betting odds, X amplifying it to its 600 million users, CBS reporting it as news, places like the podcast networks validating as smart analysis from Silicon Valley insiders, each node citing the previous one. And the person validating it all, he's simultaneously investing in it, podcasting about it, and setting government policy for it, with zero legal requirement to disclose any of it. This is on purpose. Like, how much more brazen could they be? Well, you're gonna have to wait and see.
I don't think in win-lose. I think in domination. This is a company built for bad times. Bad times mean strong finances internally. Bad times are very good for Palantir because we build products that are robust, that are built for danger.
So before I show you where all the girthy data of American goes, you need to meet the man who's been building the infrastructure to receive it for the past 20 years. Meet Alex Karp. He has a PhD in philosophy from Frankfurt School, and he studied how language obscures power. Then one day he became CEO of America's most powerful surveillance company. The irony isn't lost on him. He studied power mystification. Now he practices it. 2004 to 2025, 20 years building Palantir Technologies, 16 to 18 billion net worth. And here is what you need to know about him. December of 2025, New York Times Dealbook Summit asked about his leadership style.
And you know, the critique I get in Wall Street is I'm an arrogant prick. Okay, great. Well, you know, judge me by the accomplishment, the delta between what I've done and my arrogance. That's the definition of arrogance. If you're right a lot, maybe exerting that you're right, going to be right tomorrow is pretty important. And when we're not right, I pay the price every day. Every day. I blow up things all the time. People quit all the time. People are offended. Family members stop talking to me on occasion for years until they discover I'm right. And then they are even more ashamed.
The company name? Palantir, named after Tolkien's seeing stones in the Lord of the Rings universe. In Lord of the Rings, these artifacts granted omniscience. They also corrupted their users when using it. Karp named this surveillance company after that warning. Deliberately. So when Palantir was founded in 2003, it was co-founded with his friend Peter Thiel. They were both Stanford Law classmates, they were both roommates. Thiel would later recall, he was more the socialist, I was more the capitalist. They argued like feral animals, but they shared something. Belief that democracy needed technological guardians. 22 years later, Alex Karp now controls the surveillance backbone of America, watching everyone making those predictions. The socialist became the surveillance CEO. The capitalist funds reality manipulation. They never stopped working together. Here's what Karp built in those 20 years. August 1st of 2025, a $10 billion Army contract with Palantir, the largest software contract in Army history. It consolidates 75 separate contracts into one enterprise agreement. $1.3 billion in Maven smart system contracts. Pentagon's AI connecting space, aerial, and terrestrial sensors. It's basically the ability to see everywhere all the time, even more so. $30 million immigration operating system with ICE. More on this in a moment though. So December of 2024, Elon Musk gets the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE. Who was building DOGE's databases while they were in operation? It was Palantir. And Palantir had this master database linking IRS, Social Security Administration, Department of Homeland Security, Health and Human Services, and the Department of Education. When asked who should build this, Musk said he needed the most important builder. He got Alex Karp. But also, Palantir needs somewhere to store all that data. So in April of 2024, Oracle and Palantir announced a partnership. Larry Ellison, he is providing cloud infrastructure, database stewardship, and then we have that with the data integration and behavioral analysis of Palantir. They are the seeing stones, but with a name like Oracle too, damn. So 6 months later, September of 2024, Oracle financial analysts have a meeting. Larry Ellison is asked about privacy concerns in America, and you need to hear the response from his mouth directly.
Everyone would see it. Your body cams will be transmitting that. The police will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording, watching and recording everything that's going on. Citizens will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording and reporting everything that's going on.
That's not a warning. That's a sales pitch. He said it with enthusiasm to investors about a product that already exists and is already being executed. Ellison provides the vault, Karp provides the eyes. And Larry's son, David Ellison, owns CBS and Paramount, and they're trying to buy Netflix as of me recording this. They've been going in a battle. The data is stored on Larry's servers, analyzed by CARP's algorithms, and it's reported on David Ellison's network. You see how all these people are connected? And it's just these 7 weirdos, these 7 freaks. Alleged freaks. And he still is connected to David Sachs, the AI crypto czar, who still has his financial stake in Palantir and Polymarket as well. You have 4 nodes of this network working in complete coordination. Now, Marc Andreessen is a name that I've brought up a couple times, and while he doesn't have any direct business ties to Alex Karp, he has a lot of connections to other people within the nodes. But something that Alex and Marc both share, more importantly than business ties, is ideology. So in October of 2023, Andreessen publishes the Techno-Optimist Manifesto. Here is a direct quote. Any deceleration of AI will cost lives. Deaths that were preventable by the AI that was prevented from existing is a form of murder. That is a quote from his manifesto that you can go read right now. AI regulation is akin to murder.
These are extraordinary claims. The policies that are being called for, right, to prevent this are of extraordinary magnitude, and I think we're going to cause extraordinary damage. And this is all being done on the basis of something that is literally not scientific. It's not a testable hypothesis.
So the moment you say AI is going to kill all of us, therefore we should ban it, or that we should regulate it, all that kind of stuff, that's when it starts getting serious.
Or start, military airstrikes on data centers.
And in February of this year, Karp publishes The Technological Republic. His thesis is that democracy is too slow. Leaders must reject intellectual fragility. Silicon Valley must build for Western dominance.
So but there are really 2 ways America can be strong vis-a-vis our adversaries. One is put the fear of like death into our adversaries at any random moment, which I think is happening for the first time in a long time. And 2, get the economy to be super strong.
Both of these people fund the same super PAC leading the future that are fighting for state AI regulations or lack thereof.
I think this generation of Democrats, the ones in the White House under Biden, they became very anti-capitalist, and they wanted to go back to much more of a centralized, controlled, planned economy. And you saw that in many aspects of their policy, but I think, quite frankly, they think that the idea that the private sector plays an important role is not high up on their priority list, and they think generally companies are bad and capitalism is bad and entrepreneurs are bad.
They both advise the same administration. They both have published manifestos declaring democratic oversight an obstacle. And Andreessen, he mainly moves through media and policy funding. He was the reason that Barry Weiss got to the position eventually as the head of CBS. And while Karp and Palantir operate through surveillance infrastructure, they have different specializations, but it's the same mission. At the end of the day, they want to be able to have technology without democratic oversight. So did you know that in 2017, Alex Karp testified before Congress? To quote, "We have not and will not support programs targeting individuals based solely on ethnic or religious identity." Well, in August of 2019, there were Mississippi ICE raids. Amnesty International documents that Palantir Technology tracked undocumented workers. They helped plan coordinated raids. They separated children from their parents at workplaces. 400 workers detained, families torn apart, children coming home to empty houses. This was just a test for earlier this year. April of this year, Palantir wins $30 million immigration OS contract with ICE.
And I am not transferring my power and our influence, which honestly, the mainstream media at the Washington Post and at the New York Times doesn't always like me. That's great, because you know who does like me? About 10 million people, primarily dudes in this country. And you know what? I'm going to use my whole influence to make sure this country stays skeptical on migration and has a deterrent capacity that it only uses selectively.
Oh, and used human condoms, Stephen Miller, chief architect of the family separation policy, also holds a very big financial stake in Palantir. No wonder he said that there needed to be quotas for ICE. So we went from we won't target people by ethnic identity to building a database that does exactly that. That's not hypocrisy, though. That's just evolution of the game, baby. The infrastructure doesn't care what it's used for. It just needs to be built first. We have 7 people that have been building up to this the vast majority of their lives, working their way into different infrastructures of the daily American life to all converge at a singular point.
The basic idea was that we could never win an election on getting certain things because we were in such a small minority. But maybe you could actually unilaterally change the world without having to constantly convince people and beg people and plead with people who are never going to agree with you through technological means. And this is where I think technology is this incredible alternative to politics.
As George Carlin said at the beginning of this video, may he rest in peace, there are no conspiracies. It's just mutual shared interest. It's 7 architects with 7 different nodes, all data flowing back to the Seeing Stone. TikTok is going to be under Oracle's control, who works with Palantir, and who was also on the board to try to get TikTok under Oracle, Marc Andreessen. The 600 million global users of X and their behavioral data now goes back to Palantir. Polymarket, the transaction records, the pattern recognition, they are now Palantir clients. DOGE had federal databases with master integration that were under Palantir control. Larry Ellison told you the plan, all things under surveillance at all times. And Alex Karp, CEO of Palantir, built the infrastructure to make it real. So you've watched 7 infrastructure nodes operate. Now watch what happens when all 7 target the same objective simultaneously. July 13th, 2024. Saturday afternoon, Pennsylvania rally. You already know what happened. What you didn't see was the infrastructure activating in real time. 2:17 p.m., shots fired. And within 90 minutes, at 3:48 p.m., Elon Musk tweets, "I fully endorse President Trump and hope for his rapid recovery." The first major tech figure to endorse. Within hours, pro-Trump content engagement spikes 138% on X, far beyond the platform-wide increase from the news event itself. Not organic, algorithmic. Same day, Polymarket activates. Trump's odds on Polymarket jumped from 60 to 71% within 12 hours. $47 million in bets are placed that weekend, the largest volume spike in the platform's history up to that point. July 15th, 2024, 2 days later, the government node activates. Trump announces J.D. Vance as VP, the person handpicked by people like David Sachs and Peter Thiel. Don't forget, Vance was funded by Peter Thiel for $15 million. David Sachs advocated for him at his $12 million fundraiser 1 month earlier. July 16th through 20th in 2024, the podcast node activates and validates. All-in podcast with David Sachs and Chamath Palihapitiya. I quote, "The market is telling us something. Look at Polymarket, look at X engagement. This is real momentum." No disclosure that David Sachs invested in Polymarket. August through September, CBS, CNBC, Bloomberg all start citing Polymarket odds as news. Not gamblers think Trump will win. The circle is complete. And after the election, December 5th of 2024, David Sachs is appointed to the White House AI and crypto czar. February of 2025, Palantir is confirmed building DOGE's master database. That's Musk's department. March of 2025, TikTok's forced sale goes to Oracle and the Oracle consortium wins. That's people like Larry Ellison and Marc Andreessen. And then after that, 8 months for everything to manifest. Took 8 months for those same 7 people to secure White House positions, largest military software contract in history, the control of legacy broadcast media, one of America's most popular social media platforms for the youth, TikTok, and the database integrating every federal agency. I'm gonna keep saying this is not a conspiracy. All right, so at this point, I want you to just kind of take a sip, pause, because, you know, here's probably what you're thinking. Now, why would 7 people with billions of dollars comfortable lives, and generational wealth, risk that all for what? Political control that they don't even need?
To me, feels there's gotta be some examination of that. Some of these people are trying to live forever, and I'm wondering about that.
Well, they certainly want to stay younger for a lot longer than anybody ever has before. And then you get into the weird realm of a lot of these people that want to do something to the body where it becomes immortal. Transhumanism.
Yeah. So here's the thing about the Seeing Stone Network that makes it different from every other billionaire power grab. They don't think they're the villains. Like, these people think that in their own way, they are literally saving the world.
Hi, my name is Bob. In view of its potential to be possibly the biggest game changer ever, do you have any plans to enter the field of artificial intelligence? And in general, what are your thoughts on it?
I think we should be very careful about artificial intelligence. If I were to guess at what our biggest existential threat is,
I think one of the solution that seems maybe the best one is to have an AI layer. If you think of, like, you've got your limbic system, your cortex, and then a digital layer, a sort of a third layer above the cortex, that could work well and symbiotically with you. So mostly effectively merging in a symbiotic way with digital intelligence revolves around eliminating the I/O constraint.
And once you understand the math that they're using, everything else just starts clicking into place. So in 2009, Peter Thiel publishes an essay for the Cato Institute. The title? The Education of a Libertarian. I no longer believe that freedom and democracy are compatible. Once again, not a conspiracy theory. This is a published manifesto. A full passage goes further. Since 1920, the vast increase in welfare beneficiaries and the extension of the franchise to women, two constituencies that are notoriously tough for libertarians, have rendered the notion of capitalist democracy into an oxymoron. That was in 2009. He published that with his full name and full-throated chest. This is the man who named his surveillance company Palantir. Like I said, after a Lord of the Rings evil artifact. He straight up told you who he was right on the package. He was very blatant about what he is building. And I hate how cheesy this sounds, but once you see the infrastructure at this scope and at this level, it's so hard to not see it everywhere. But this is the math that people like Peter Thiel actually believe. So there are 8 billion humans alive today. Average lifespan is about 80 years. Total human life years at stake in the current democracy, 640 billion. This is the scope that they're thinking of. Trillions of future humans who could live for centuries through life extension technology. Quadrillions of life years if we colonize space. In incomprehensibly vast populations if we do things like creating digital consciousnesses. So in their math, 8 billion living humans, that's just a rounding error, baby. Because you and I, we're the rounding error that they're optimizing around. Democracy slows down AI development, that's a rounding error that is holding back trillions. Surveillance makes current humans uncomfortable, that discomfort of billions versus the extinction risk for quadrillions of future humans. Environmental regulations that slow down Mars colonization, that's a rounding error for delaying the cosmic destiny that lies before us. So let's revisit their quotes through this lens. Marc Andreessen saying that AI regulation will cost lives. Elon Musk, humans are a biological bootloader for digital superintelligence. Translation, you're not the destination, you're just a part of the process.
Hand over your flesh, and a new world awaits you.
Peter Thiel, freedom and democracy are incompatible.
But I keep thinking that maybe the AGI question's less important than passing the Turing test. If we got AGI, if we got, let's say, superintelligence, if we got, that would be interesting to Mr. God. because you'd have competition for being God. But surely the Turing test is more important for us humans, because it's either a complement or a substitute to humans, and so it's going to rearrange the economic, cultural, political structure of our society in extremely dramatic ways. And I think maybe what's already happened is much more important than anything else that's going to be done.
This is transhumanism. This is long-termism. You know what? The people in my AI cult video who said that this was test grill, you know what? You guys were right. You guys called it. And you guys called it before I even put all this together. So they were right.
Our lifespans are short. Our final years usually characterized by diminishing health and vitality, often accompanied by a drop-off in cognitive capacity. 1 in 3 people born in 2015 are expected to get dementia. Is this really the best we can hope for? Transhumanists think not. Aging could be stopped and even reversed. Enhancements could dramatically raise our IQs and make us stronger and fitter.
And yeah, you know what? If you're familiar with Warhammer, this is the exact weird stuff that led to the 41st millennium. And I hate it. It's their ideology running through every node of the network that we have now. We have the Adeptus Mechanicus in office. So for those of you who aren't aware of what transhumanism is, here's really just a quick surface level breakdown. Neuralink, brain-computer interfaces, it's longevity research. They're not building enhancement technology for everyone. Musk Neuralink cost $500,000 per procedure. That is immortality research funded by Teal that requires lifelong medical access billionaires have and you don't. There's that one guy who's using his son as like a blood bag and trying to reverse aging and like measuring his pee streams. I don't remember what his name is, but I'll put up his something about him here. The ideology isn't all humans should be enhanced. It's not cyberpunk. It's enhanced humans are a different category of being and should govern unenhanced populations. If you believe enhanced humans and biological humans are separate classes, then enhanced humans controlling infrastructure isn't authoritarian, it's custodianship. That is what they think they're doing. They're shepherding an inferior biological population towards a transhuman future. A transhuman future that you're too primitive to consent to. When Donald Trump said transgender for everyone, he actually meant transhuman for everyone. If you genuinely believe that 10 trillion enhanced post-humans will exist in 500 years, then the preference of 8 billion current humans who'll be dead in 80 years tops literally do not matter in the grand scheme of things. Democracy itself becomes an obstacle for the greater good. I hate how much this sounds like Warhammer. And here's the thing that makes it so dangerous. It's not evil people doing evil things. It's brilliant people who have done the math that justifies anything in service of their theoretical future. Things like surveillance, overriding democracy, concentrating power, that is all necessary for the greater good. 7 people controlling 7 infrastructures, that is efficient optimization for mankind. They're doing more than just building an authoritarian state. They're building what they think is a life raft for humanity.
You know, the biggest problem with that is it's not helping the poor people that they claim to serve. If you think that's helping a black person in the inner city, you're ridiculous. The last thing anyone in this country needs is a dysfunctional educational system and handouts that have never worked and are not going to work.
And we're not invited because it's a big club and we're not in it because you're biological, democratic, and present tense. You're the bootloader, not the operating systems.
It's a big club and you ain't in it. You and I.
All right, so to wrap up, just go over this one more time. Infrastructure over content. You don't need to convince 300 million Americans if you control the 7 nodes that Americans use daily. Network over individuals. 1 billionaire buying a company is capitalism. 7 billionaires coordinating across prediction markets, social platforms, broadcast news, government positions, surveillance infrastructure, unregulated finance, and podcast validation. That's not capitalism, that's the new infrastructure. And timing over coincidence. When Musk endorsed Trump and the algorithm changes that day, That's not always a coincidence. When Polymarket X, CBS, and the All In podcast all amplify the same narrative within 72 hours, that is a source of coordination. When 6 major infrastructure moves happen in 8 months, all benefiting the exact same 7 people, that is an execution of a plan. Like, these people didn't need to break the law. They built the world where the laws don't apply.
What about these left-wing philanthropy ventures do you think is uniquely corrupt?
Maybe it's just my hermeneutic of suspicion. There's something about the virtue signaling and what does it mean? And I always think this is sort of a America versus Europe difference, where in America, we're told that that philanthropy is something a good person does, and if you're a Rockefeller and you start giving away all your money, this is just what a good person does, and it shows how good you are. And then I think sort of the European intuition on it is something like, wow, this is only something a very evil person does.
And at this point, the question isn't whether or not this is happening. You just watched it happen in real time from July 13th of last year to March. The question is, what do you do now that you can see it? So at this point, yes, there's a lot to say about what you can and can't do. But the easiest thing to do is just to not participate. And here's what makes this different from every other tech is bad critique. At least having some understanding of the pattern is how you stop participating. Not waiting for regulation that's never going to come. Through just seeing the pattern and doing everything you can to not participate. Because here's something that I haven't really told you yet until just now. This isn't really a new investigation. This is what I've been teaching you throughout my videos all this year. V for Vendetta has aged like fascist wine. You thought that you were watching a movie analysis. I was teaching you to recognize surveillance infrastructure. My video about Gabe Newell, the billionaire video, you thought I was critiquing a game developer and a company. Instead, I was teaching you that infrastructure capture happens through forced adoption. Why Trump defunded PBS and NPR. Like, it was more than just about defending public broadcasting. I was documenting the infrastructure destruction. Like, those are just 3 of my past videos, 3 different topics, and they were all documenting the same pattern. And the Seeing Stone Network, it does all of it, simultaneously at a civilization scale, with 7 people that you can now name and recognize. So here's what to do from this point. Keep an eye out for these names. I know that there's also the Stargate data center that was announced with, I think, like Oracle and OpenAI and Palantir or something like that. But keep an eye out for these names. Keep an eye out who these names are hanging out with, who are talking about these names in a positive light, and just use the information that you have now going forward. Know about the fact that if it's coming from Polymarket, that there's a really good chance that it's not going to be good information. Be aware that anything from X is now beyond suspect. And be aware when Barry Weiss is interviewing Erica Kirk on CBS that the people who funded her to get her to that position have a vested interest in keeping that narrative up. Map the funding, track where the board overlaps, watch for the same names that appear repeatedly. Other than that, the only other thing I can think of is just keep your head on a swivel and everyone stay safe.